Yes, thanks for tuning in. Well, I've got another conversion story. I'm easing off Islam this week. We're back to Christianity. So we've got an MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, one of the top institutions in the world for science. We've got a professor, Rosalind Pickard, who has converted. She says she went from atheism to agnosticism to theism, and then from there she went apparently to Christianity. And she's explaining to this gentleman why. So we started off a little bit with a straw man because the gentleman has said, what do you think of the view that the common science view of science, that if it can't be measured with science, it doesn't exist? Well, that's a bit of a straw man because some scientists take the hard materialist position that if we can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Others take the position that we're restricted to measuring what science can measure, and there may be something outside of the universe, something outside of the material world, and we can't currently access it. So she's responding to the hard materialist position. Let's just have a listen then to what she says.
To limit the scientific method to things we can measure and reason about and reproduce, that's fine. I think we have to recognize that sometimes we scientists also believe in things that happen historically. Like I believe the Holocaust happened. I can't prove events from past history scientifically. You prove them with historical evidence, right? With the impact they had on people, with eyewitness testimony and things like that.
Yeah, well, history is like the science of the past, isn't it? And the way that we deal with that is by examining the evidence in the same way that, for example, with paleontology, we go back and look at fossils. So it's kind of the same thing because we're investigating, we're gathering evidence, we're analyzing the evidence, and then we're reaching justified conclusions based on the evidence. We're going where the evidence leads, whether it's history, whether it's the physical sciences like chemistry and physics. So I don't really see how she's going to get from here to accepting supernatural claims. What evidence is there for the supernatural claims? That's what I'm really interested in, because her example about the Holocaust is a bad one. There's a ton of evidence that there's physical evidence, or there's film, there's testimony, there's physical evidence in terms of all the shoes and all the belongings and all the photographic evidence, the film that we've got, and there's so much evidence, skeletons, the whole lot. We've got plenty of it. There are Holocaust deniers, but there's plenty of evidence. She's taken a bad one here.
So a good thinker recognizes that science is one of many ways to get knowledge. It's not the only way. And there's been some really bad philosophy.
Well, wait a minute. Science is the only way to get reliable knowledge about the material world. I think that's the case. What kind of methodology, as a Christian, has she got to test her belief in the supernatural? That's what I'm really interested in. I hope she's going to get there.
Bad thinking recently, you can call it scientism, where people say science is the only way to get to truth. And it's not. It just isn't. There are other ways that work also, like knowledge of love.
Okay, well, she's talking about knowledge of love. That's a little bit different from, for example, knowledge that there is a God and that this God actually exists. It's not really the same thing. I mean, if we're talking about, if she's going to say, for example, that I know that I love Jesus and that Jesus is God, okay, I can accept that she's got a feeling of love and that she loves the idea of Jesus, but that this idea of Jesus that she's got, although she's in love with it, it may not map to anything real. It may well be that there is no Jesus and there is no God. So you could still be in love. You could be in love with a fictional character. So I don't really see it as quite the same thing. Knowledge of love. The big issue is about whether the supernatural is real, whether the resurrection happened, and whether there is actually a God. So it's not really the same thing.
Your love through science, right? So history, philosophy, love, a lot of other things in life, show us that there's more ways to gain knowledge and truth, if you're willing to believe there is such a thing, and I believe there is, than science. I am a scientist, however, and in my science, I do limit my science to the things that the scientific method can do. But I recognize that it's myopic to say that that's all there is.
Right.
Well, okay. Again, coming back to that straw man, of all the atheists that I know, I don't know of any that say that the material world is all that there is. Only that we don't currently have a good reason to believe that there is anything other than the material world. That's a bit different. We're not ruling out the supernatural. I'm not ruling out the supernatural. I don't know if the supernatural is possible, but I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Just like you listed, there's all the why questions, and really we know, if we're being honest with ourselves, the percent of what we really know is basically zero.
Okay, the percentage of what we know is basically zero, if we're being honest with ourselves. I don't know where you got that figure from. If we know one single thing, then the percent of what we know can't really be zero, can it? It must be something, if only 0.00, recurring 1%. It must be something if we know at least one thing. And but it depends, of course, on how he defines knowledge. If he's saying that there's no such thing as knowledge, there can't be knowledge, we don't know anything, then of course the percent of what we know will be zero. But okay, let's find out what he means by that.
To the full mystery of the
measure theory, a set of measure zero. If I have a finite amount of knowledge, which I do.
So you said that you believe in truth. So let me ask that old question. What do you think this thing is all about? It's life on Earth?
Life, the universe, and everything.
Everything. What's the meaning?
I can't quote Douglas Adams, 42. It's my favorite number. By the way, that's 40... my street address. My husband and I guessed the exact same number for our house. We got to pick it. Okay, and there's a reason we picked 42. Yeah.
So is it just 42, or do you have other words that you can put around it?
Well, I think there's a grand adventure, and I think this life is a part of it. I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye and the heart and the mind and the soul here. I think we see but through a glass dimly in this life. We see only a part of all there
This is all very vague. Would you get to the specifics? What do you believe and why?
Is to know. If people haven't read the Bible, they should, if they consider themselves educated. And you could read Proverbs and find tremendous wisdom in there.
Yeah, I've read Proverbs. I think they're amazing. I think Proverbs is it's my favorite book in the Bible. I think there are some fantastic Proverbs, but that doesn't prove that there's a God, does it? Or that Jesus is real, or that there was a resurrection. There are also some wise things in the Quran and various other religions, but none of it proves that there's a God. So why don't you get on with it?
That cannot be scientifically proven, but when you read it, there's something in you, like a musician knows when the instrument's played right and it's beautiful. There's something in you that comes alive and knows that there's a...
Okay, right. I've got works of fiction that when I read them, something sort of comes alive in me. I've got music that something comes alive in me when I listen to it. I know by intuition that something is right when I'm listening to a Mozart concerto or something like that. Yeah, I get exactly what she's saying. I get that feeling too, but it doesn't mean that there's a God.
Truth there, that it's like your strings are being plucked by the master instead of by me, right? Twang when I pluck it, but probably when you play, it sounds spectacular, right? And when you encounter those truths, there's something in you.
Okay, so now she's saying that when she's reading the Bible, it's like when the strings are plucked by a master. In other words, these proverbs are so amazingly deep, and they're so amazingly, they got so much truth to them that they could have only come from a God. That's what she's claiming. How does she know that? How can she not rule out? How can she rule out that just some very, very wise people wrote these proverbs? After all, these kind of proverbs and sayings, they come from across cultures. And people have said very wise things. Shakespeare wasn't a god, but he arguably said more wise things in his plays than anything there is in the Bible.
That sings and knows that there is more than what I can prove mathematically or program a computer to do. Don't get me wrong, the math is gorgeous. The computer programming can be brilliant. It's inspiring, right? We want to do more. None of this squashes my desire to do science or to get knowledge through science. I'm not.
Okay, supposing there is more, how do you know what that is? And where's the evidence? And how did you draw that conclusion?
Dissing the science at all. I grow even more in awe of what the science can do because I'm more in awe of all there is we don't know. And really at the heart of science,
how can you be in awe of things we don't know? I don't really get that. I mean, I'm in awe of Einstein's general theory of relativity. I'm in awe of that because it's an amazing theory, quantum theory, etc. I'm in awe of theories on dark matter, black holes, etc. It's awe-inspiring. How can you be in awe of things that we don't yet know? That baffles me.
You have to have a belief that there's truth, that there's something greater to be discovered. And
okay, have a belief that there is this truth, but how do you go from there to taking on a religion with all the baggage?
Some scientists may not want to use the faith word, but it's faith that drives us to do science. It's faith that there is truth, that there's something to know that we don't know, that it's worth knowing, that it's worth working hard, and that there is meaning.
Okay, now she's kind of including all scientists in this statement that it's faith that makes us want to find out more. I don't think that faith is quite the right word. I think Richard Dawkins would probably say it's curiosity and a desire to know how, what set of circumstances brought us into existence. It's a desire to know. It's not faith. It's not faith. It's curiosity.
But there is such a thing as meaning, which, by the way, science can't prove either. We have to kind of start with some assumptions that there's things like truth and meaning. And these are really questions.
Well, wait a minute. Okay. That's not an assumption I've got. I've got no assumption that there's truth in the way that she probably means it, that there's some big transcendent truth and some purpose and meaning to life. I don't operate on that assumption. My position is, I don't know. I'm waiting for evidence. Philosophers
own, right? This is their space of philosophers and theologians at some level. So these are things science, when people claim that science will tell you all truth, there's a name for that. It's
well, who said that? Who said that science will tell you all truths? Science will tell us more and more and more about the natural world. Whether it will eventually tell us everything, I don't know. I just don't know what science will end up telling us in terms of how much there is to know. Yeah.
It's its own kind of faith. It's scientism, and it's very myopic.
Okay, yeah, so she's moving on in this clip. Obviously, she's presented a lot of straw men there. Let's not go back over that. I think I made my point. And now she's in some other forum, and she's talking more specifically about how she started off, that she used to look at Christians as people who didn't know very much. They didn't know how to do science, etc. She didn't think they were very smart. And okay, let's have a listen.
Started to realize that many of such people were super smart, and they challenged me to read the best-selling book of all time, which is probably still the Bible, and the Hebrew and Old Testament and Christian New Testament. And as I was reading that to my against my desires, I started to change my mind about some things. And then I thought, oh gosh, okay, if this book is influencing me to change my mind toward Christianity or toward belief in God, maybe I should study other world religions. So I started to do that. And as I started learning more and more about different world religions, meeting people from those religions and going to temples and mosques and others, I started to realize that not only did I have a lot to learn, but I was on a journey that was starting to make me not only believe in God even more, but as I got dragged off to some Christian churches, which I resisted in the beginning, and found some where I could ask questions, very important, I started to realize that the religion was not at all what I thought it was, and that there were some really interesting and very attractive elements that were very historically verified also. Not
Specifically what? What is specifically verified historically from the Bible? Please, I'm all ears.
at all what I expected. And as I learned about that, I changed my
She didn't say, she just skated straight past it.
viewpoint gradually from an atheist to an agnostic to a theist to somebody who actually believed that the historical Jesus and the New Testaments, what's written about him, was true. It sounds a little wacky to those who may not come from that background. It was not an easy process. But as I did that, and then I was challenged to not only believe this, but to put it to practice, that's where things started to really make a difference in my life. And actually, the real reason I'm here right now, spending time talking about something like this, as opposed to just my research, is because it has made a huge difference in my life. And part of the Christian faith is that there's a gift for everybody in the world, whether you're raised Christian or Hindu or Muslim or Buddhist or atheist or any of a long list of backgrounds. There's a gift for everybody there. And when I accepted that gift, it made a huge difference in my life, for the better, big improvement. So I didn't realize it needed so much improving at the time. Those around me saw the difference. And
Okay. What is the gift? I've been around religious people. I've been around Christians. I've been around Muslims. I've been around meditators, Zen, Buddhism, the whole lot. And I've often seen the benefits of it. I've seen big Christian smiles. All right. I've seen big Christian smiles. I've seen the bliss of meditators. I've seen benefits. And there's no doubt that religion can be very, very beneficial. The communities, the whole feeling of community. I've seen Christians together smiling and laughing and joking, having a great time. I don't deny that there are benefits to the religion. But it's like Dumbo's lucky feather. How does she know it's true? She said that she went from reading the Bible, she studied religions, she went around the world, and she became a believer, but she didn't exactly she wasn't precise about why she actually believes in the existence of God. She said there are historically verifiable things in the Bible. If she's talking about the resurrection, there just isn't. The resurrection has not been verified on any historical level at all. There are no history departments in any university in which you can study the resurrection. You only find the resurrection in the theology department. It hasn't been confirmed. So if she thinks it's been confirmed, it hasn't. She's wrong.
Today, it is my source of strength, an amazing source of peace and joy and wisdom.
Okay, well, that's about it. These clips, by the way, have actually been put up by another YouTuber who's a Christian, and he's using them basically to showcase this conversion story. And I'll put a link below so that you can see. But he thinks this is an inspiring story, and obviously because she's an MIT professor and a scientist, it seems inspiring. But she hasn't really given any good reasons why she converted. Only that it resonated with her, the Bible. It seemed wise. The Proverbs she mentioned. She went around the world. She had a bit of a spiritual journey, and she has this belief that there are events in the Bible that have been historically verified. Well, of course, some things have been historically verified. The mundane claims have, but the big claims like the existence of God, the walking dead, the resurrection, the miracles, none of those have been verified and confirmed. So she's wrong about that. And she didn't really go into any other reason why she does believe. Only it seems to me because it benefited her a lot. It makes her feel good. It's brought a lot of joy into her life. But she hasn't really presented any evidence why. Now, I appreciate that she may have other evidence that I haven't seen. And I may well go and research some more of her videos to find out whether she's got anything more specific to say. But I would have thought that the Christian who went through her videos and found the most inspiring material and the most convincing and compelling as evidence, and the only sort of compelling, I would say, to the ignorant, is that when she said that we should not limit our knowledge to what science can tell us, that there's a big truth out there and that faith will take us there. He thinks that's compelling. I don't. I need more than faith. I need evidence. That's why I'm an atheist. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.